Let's move on then and let's invite our next management. Premier Energies has signed a near $20 million solar power contract in West Africa. We have with us Mr. Vinay Rustagi, the Chief Business Officer at Premier Energies, who joins us on the show. Hi Vinay, good morning. Thanks a lot for joining in. Coming across to you. For the time being, just highlighting the three broad points that we're going to be looking at. The rationale behind the West Africa foray. And is it a one-time or are there more such forays planned? Point number two. The impact of the lower GST on renewable sector, and finally, the outlook of Indian module prices amidst the rising capacity. Well, Vinay, good to have you on the show, sir. I recall earlier you had said that your focus is going to be more domestic in nature, and you don't have much capacity for exports. So tell us more about this African foray. What kind of capex will be required from your end? Is this the one-off, or do you have more plans to get into the global arena?
Well, thanks for having me. And you're right, we did say that for us, the focus in the short run is the Indian market. Having said that, we have to bear in mind that today India is one of the largest and the most competitive manufacturer of solar panels in the world after China. The domestic manufacturing ecosystem is growing very strongly, partly because thanks to the government's support for Make in India. And as we grow our capacities and capabilities, it is imperative for us to look for new growth opportunities. And hence, you will see us tapping into markets in Africa and other countries around the world to find new opportunities for us.
But could you tell us, in terms of the investment, initially you mentioned around $20 million. What kind of an asset turn will you be looking at in terms of these markets? How big can the pie get? Some broad outlook in terms of the total quantum you're looking to spend and how much you're looking to penetrate into that market.
See, in terms of the outlook, the money that we're going to spend on this, it is going to come out of our existing operational capacity. So there is no capex involved. The $20 million number that you refer to is the order value. And this order value comprises installation of some rooftop solar systems, solar heaters, as well as solar street lights. It will all come out of our existing production lines in India. And there is no new net incremental capex involved for us. Yes. In terms of the market size, like I said, solar is booming around the world. Africa is a great opportunity, particularly as the country has very low penetration of power. And off-grid and new distributed solar systems are going to be instrumental in electrifying most of the continent. So hence, we are looking at that opportunity out of India. But in terms of new capex, there is nothing as yet.
I just did a quick search through in terms of competition in Africa. And that's what I really want to, understand. So Vinay, there are players like Scatec, EDF Renewables, First Solar, which is US, EDF is French for the benefit of our viewers. The Italians are there, ENEL, Green Power, etc. So the who's already reached Africa, right? In terms of just trying to gain some market share, give us a roadmap. Say over the next 3 years, how much of your business will continue to come in from India? How much will you target Africa? And will you at all look at the US? Though the US has enough issues of its own in terms of tariffs, very high regulation. But I don't know, since you're looking global, will you look towards the US at all?
So I think there are many issues that you covered in your question. So let me try to address them. So when you talk about players like Scatec and other European players and maybe people from China coming into Africa, that's absolutely right. But, the sector has a very distinct, I would say, three-part value chain. One is the project developers. These are large companies who are setting up mainly ground-mounted projects, and that is where Scatec and some of the other big majors from around the world are focusing on. Second part is the EPC, which is people are just buying the equipment and installing these systems. And the third part is the equipment supply. Equipment supply is where there is a massive shortage in Africa. And most of the equipment is imported from other countries, including China and India. And that is the market that we are really focusing on. So as far as we see, there is not too much competition other than, I would say, China. And hence, we are kind of really trying to see with the government support, if we can find a good, attractive market, which does open up a new growth opportunity for us. So I think that is the outlook in comparison to Africa and how we are focusing on that market. There was an earlier question about GST. So I think in terms of GST, I think it is a very good move for the entire sector.
Vinay, just 1 second. Sorry, to complete the Africa point.
Sure.
So when you have to compete with the Chinese in that international market, typically when you compete with the Chinese on anything, the competition comes down to lowest cost pricing. So is that an arena that you can compete in effectively at all and yet retain profitability and decent margins? I mean, what will be the margin of your Africa business vis-a-vis your India business? Again, I'm not talking about immediate. I'm talking about a 2-year roadmap or 3-year roadmap.
So I think in terms of the competition, you're right. The direct competition is with China, but then there are ways to open up that market, particularly with the government support. The government has various tools in terms of trade treaties, developmental aid, and Exim Bank financing, etc., which can open up a very attractive opportunity for India, and that is what we are mainly looking at. So Africa does need a lot of developmental aid. The Indian government has a very good relationship with many of the countries across Africa. So we are hoping that with the government's help, we can open up this market. In terms of pricing and margins, so the overall pricing and margins for us are largely in line with the current business in India and overall very attractive, meeting our threshold returns. Your other question was about what is the 3-year outlook for us. So I think it's very difficult to say right now. We are looking at the US market as well, but obviously there is a short-term uncertainty because of the 50% tariffs. Plus, there is a new anti-dumping duty petition which has been filed in the US against imports from India. So I think there is a short-term uncertainty. But again, as you would know, the Indian government is trying to sign a free trade agreement with the US, and there are expectations that some of these tariff levels will be reduced, ultimately again opening up the US market as well. So the long-term outlook for the Indian exports, I would say, is attractive because as we are growing capacities, the cost of production is coming down, and solar demand is growing everywhere in the world.
Vinay, can I come in? Morning.
Sure.
Did you watch President Trump's speech at the UN? Did you hear?
I did. Yes, I'm aware of that.
So, I mean, of course, that is. So he said, a completely full-throttled attack, right, on the what he called the green energy agenda, dismissing wind, solar as costly, unreliable, return to fossil fuels, nuclear, calling carbon footprint a hoax, and warning other countries like Europe, etc., that their energy policies are a disaster. Now, there is, of course, a tariff bit in the US, but there is, of course, I think the bigger issue, tariff is just a manifestation of the underlying policy and the fact that they don't like all this stuff, right? At least for the next 3.5 years. 3.5 years later, we'll see whatever happens. But even with regards to Africa, Vinay, I'm assuming a lot of aid comes from US. I mean, US is the capital of the world, right? And a lot of aid flows through those channels. Even multilateral organizations. US has been the largest donor historically for EV. And these are all technologies where you need a lot of government support for adoption, and then they become self-sustaining. Isn't this a problem then?
So, let's take the US market. I think there is at the top level, there is some governmental resistance to renewables, but I think the overall picture for renewables, even in the US, remains very compelling. So if you look at the demand, there is a strong demand outlook because the end consumers, whether it is the IT companies, the industry, the retail consumer, the households, they still want solar solutions because this is the most competitive source of power. So we do expect the demand for solar to stay. Maybe there will be some small blips here and there. But overall, I think the market kind of is still growing in our view. And hence we are kind of looking at that market. When it comes to Africa, you're right. There are various competing players, whether it is the US, China, or India. Look, I mean, I think India has to find its own path in the continent.
No, Vinay, my question is specific. Funding for projects. I mean, governments are there are developmental organizations fund a lot of this, right? Because countries there are poor, and they are so isn't that is funding going to be an issue at all? Because the source of the largest amounts of capital is the US, and there is a very specific targeted crackdown on many of this stuff now.
So, okay, I'm not sure if US is the largest funder over there, but I think the Indian government also is very keen to work with the African nations to find an export market for Indian products. India is giving developmental aid to many of these countries, and the best example is our project in Benin, where the aid is coming from India in the form of cheaper financing for these products. So I think India is also the founder of India International Solar Alliance, which is a body which comprises over 40 nations from Africa. We are undertaking initiatives to reduce the cost of solar equipment for the African consumers. So I think India can still play an important role in the growth of solar power in the continent.
No, I wish you all the best of luck. I mean, we need more renewable power despite what President Trump says. And, that speech, certainly carbon footprint is a hoax. I mean, I don't know what to say to that, what to make of it. But anyway, it is what it is, at least for the next 3.5 years. And we've got to sort of navigate through some of this stuff. Thank you for joining us here, Vinay. I appreciate your time. Sorry, you were saying something, Vinay?
No, I said thanks for having me.
All right, thank you very much.